put your mind at ease. Things that ain't me. Come on now, people, make a stand. Things that ain't me. Can't you see we need a hand? Things that ain't me. Come on, protect the motherland. Things that ain't me.
Welcome back to Fireside Chats, week number 16 with SS Grandma, and today we're kicking things off with a forbidden love between an ex-nun and an ex-priest.
It was my cousin Gordon, Rose's son, my Aunt Rose's son, who had become a priest. And he'd worked quite a while in the colored district and other places, and we all thought he was pretty happy with it. But other people said, well, he's not too happy because he doesn't think he can ever be Pope. But anyhow, he finally went to the order and asked to leave, and they let him leave. And he was very good at what he did. He invested in real estate and different things, and he became a family counselor. Then he met Mary, I think her name was Mary Ann, who'd been a nun, and she'd left her order, and she was a nurse, I think, in nursing. And they met and later married, but they never had any children. But he's still living last I heard in half a year in Arizona, where they have a home, and half a year in Portland, Oregon. And that's on my side of the family.
And when did they get married?
Well, I can't quite figure when it was. But it was after I was married, and, long. So it could have been because he was younger than I was. So I'm sure I really can't tell when. But he must have been in his late 30s, maybe 35 or 36 when he left the priesthood and then met Mary and married.
Did anybody talk about it? Was it a big ordeal?
No, everybody accepted he was an adult, and if he couldn't be a good priest and stay and be happy, why then, he can resign and be allowed. But one thing I do know, once a priest, you're always a priest. But he went on and he became a good family counselor, and he's a good man. Became very successful in buying property and selling it. And Mary Ann was a very good nurse and nice person from a big family. So they had a nice marriage. Last I heard, they were still living in Arizona and coming to Oregon for half the year.
Moving on to our next topic. Tell us about your trip to Niagara Falls and that time in life.
That was just before Stan went overseas. I met him in Chicago, and he just received his commission, and was an officer in the Navy, an ensign, they call it, at his first bar. And then we got on the train to go to Rhode Island because he was ascending to PT boat school where he could learn about the PT boats. Did I tell the story of how he got assigned to it?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was from San Pedro and we're all fishermen. But anyhow, so we got on the train and we had to stop off at Niagara to change trains, which I was pleased with, so happy. And so we were close enough that we could walk over to Niagara Falls and walk across the border into Canada and then back into the United States and see the glorious Niagara Falls. They were quite glorious. And then had to get back on the train and go to Rhode Island, where he was assigned PT boat base, and we found I think we stayed at some hotel, and then the next day while he was at the base, I had to try and find a place to live. And so I was just walking up and down the streets of this little town in Rhode Island, and finally found the for rent sign in the inn. And this old maid lived in this old house, and she had a room for rent in her two-story house. So I went up and saw it. It was a nice little sort of bedroom, kitchen area, but you share a bathroom with another tenant upstairs. And I rented it, happy to get it. I think it was $80 a month. And Stan came back. I told him where it was, and we went. And when he thought he had to share a bathroom, said, who was it? And they told him it was some officer in the Navy who was, I think, a captain or commander. And he said, oh my gosh, I hope I don't have to salute every time I go to the bathroom. But he didn't. The guy was nice. He just stayed there during the week, and I think he lived close by in another state. Rhode Island's a very small state. I went home on weekends, so he didn't bother us too much. It was a tiny, tiny little apartment, but we were very happy to be there. And he went off to the base every morning learning how to pilot those PT boats. And I sort of more or less stayed home and would walk up and down, look at the big mansions on the hill in Rhode Island that are overlooking the ocean. And still today, those mansions are there. A lot of very rich families own them, come for vacations. So it was quite enjoyable to me to do that. And it was funny how I met one of my friends in a drugstore there. And she saw my white shoes, which was California. And she said, when I saw white shoes, I looked because I knew that was California. And lo and behold, it was me. A friend she knew. In those days, who wore white shoes on the East Coast? So we had just about 3 months there, and then he was sent to Brooklyn to his squadron to try out the boats and get all set to go overseas. And so we went up on the train to Brooklyn, and we found another room with a lady in Brooklyn. Every night we could hear her up down in the basement playing cards with her friends, but that didn't bother us. We had one little room, and I washed with a little hot plate. I washed the dishes or whatever little bit we had in the bathtub because there was no sink or anything else. We were very happy to be together. We could get on the subway and go up to New York and walk down famous Broadway. And one day he came home and said, well, I won't be back. But my friend Eleanor had married John Isaacs, who was shot down in the Pacific, and then was back and they were stationed in New York, and we met with them several times. So Stan arranged for John McIsaac to get me to the train and everything to get home. And then on the next day he was gone, and John took me to the train, and I think I was 2.5 or 3 days on the train going back to California. And by then, of course, I was pregnant with little Louie. And I didn't know how long Stan would be gone, or whether he'd come back alive or dead. It was not the happiest time in my life, I'll tell you. But we made it. We lived through it.
The time leading up to it was a happy, happy time. Not so happy when he left. So at Niagara Falls, you were able to get off the train and walk to the falls from the station. How far of a walk was it?
It wasn't too far. It wasn't too far. But we could also walk across into Canada because it's in both Canada and the United States. So that was sort of a fun thing, because, you know, you've always heard about Niagara Falls. And it is a big falls.
There's a good picture of you in front of it.
Yeah.
So, Grandma, the friend that you met in the drugstore, did you know her already, or?
Well, you know, she wasn't a real close friend. She was, I can't remember now who she was. It could have been, you know, just a friend I'd had or met, you know. And of course, during the war, you never knew when you were going to meet somebody because, you know, everybody was traveling different places. Everything was happening with men going overseas and being stationed here and stationed there. Trains were so crowded. And the second time I went with Louie, and she was on my lap and Stan was sitting on a suitcase in the aisle for the whole trip. It's quite different. Women didn't wear slacks or anything like that in those days. They always wore a skirt, you know. But my nursing uniform was down to there, and white socks, white shoes, white stockings, yeah, long, you know, and the sleeves down to there. You know, well, the fashion of the day was much more modest than today. Much. Even day clothes or anything like that. We did very seldom. Well, I saw my graduation dress on. It was the round foil. Much more modest.
Well, this has been week number 16 by the fire with SS Grandma, and we will see you next time.